So our final recipient this evening is Dr. Christopher Spurney from Children's National Medical Center in Washington, D.C. He will receive $200,000 over the next 2 years for his project entitled Does Vamorolone Delay Cardiac Disease and Rescue Puberty in DMD? Exploring critical questions related to long-term health outcomes and quality of life. Dr. Spurney, please go ahead.
Uh, Great. Well, thank you so much. Let me pull up my presentation here. All right, good. Everybody can see that okay?
Yes.
Perfect. I am a pediatric cardiologist. I am a newcomer to Defeat Duchenne Canada. I am extremely grateful to hear that amazing story about its founding and kind of the journey that it's gone through and how its research support has increased. And I'm certainly honored to be the recipient of that research and thank the committee for their work reviewing all the applications. This certainly may have some additional interest to Defeat Duchenne Canada because the work does study vamorolone. And as Dr. Luckmuller spoke about earlier, this is a steroid type drug that has recently been approved and was invested in by Defeat Duchenne Canada. So just to start off, again, steroids, they are our current standard of care. They are kind of a shotgun approach, but they decrease the inflammatory responses in skeletal muscles. This limits the disease extent and prolongs ambulation times. Certainly from my standpoint, right, we think about the heart, and there have been many studies that have demonstrated that steroid treatment is beneficial for the heart, and it can delay the onset of heart disease. And so certainly we are happy to see patients treated with steroids from a heart standpoint. What was mentioned also was that steroids do have significant side effects, and these can have a big impact on quality of life. Listing out here, you saw these a little earlier: obesity, these Cushingoid features, hirsutism, insulin resistance, osteoporosis, mood disturbances, stunted growth, delayed puberty. So many side effects that can often lead to people either stopping steroids or wanting to change. And that's, a lot of research has been about different steroid protocols. So vamorolone kind of came out of this concern for steroid side effects and effects on quality of life. And it's a novel steroidal compound that's anti-inflammatory. And it has the data to get approval by the FDA for 2 years and older for use in DMD. And then internationally, it's approved, and I guess Canada coming up, 4 years and older. As was mentioned, vamorolone has shown similar benefits to skeletal muscle function and outcomes similar to prednisone, and then showed an improved safety profile, less side effects. And there was a lot of focus on less stunting of growth and less mood disturbances. There's the website there if anyone wants to kind of go and learn a bit more about it. I pulled the kind of images of the structure just to go through a few details that are pertinent to us. You can see at the top here, the green circles. This is vamorolone, and it has these two green vertical lines. This is a indication of a double bond between these carbon atoms. And if you look down here at prednisolone, deflazacort, or classic steroids, you can see there's a single vertical line and then this other little OH group that hangs off the top there. And so it's really just this little difference that we have found to be the benefit in the side effect profile, is just this change in structure. So it has this unique structure difference, and that has changed some of its activity. because it lacks that OH molecule that's hanging off the top. It's not really modified by some of the normal steroid enzymes that are in the body. It also does not bind the glucocorticoid receptor. That's the receptor where steroids bind. So it binds that less effectively, and that is likely related to its less steroid profile or less side effect profile. And then this last one is what has become of interest to a cardiologist, is that it's found to have a mineralocorticoid receptor antagonism. That's kind of a mouthful. If we were all in the same room, I would make everyone say it together. I will stumble over it at some point during the talk. But the mineralocorticoid receptor is a specific one in the body that reacts to different hormones. Looking at the images to the right, you can see progesterone at the top here is a strong antagonist. So the same thing, an antagonist is something that blocks or decreases the activity. And comparing that to the compound to the right that is an MR agonist, or it stimulates that receptor. And you can see the difference again is that there's no OH group hanging off the carbon bond there. And so vamorolone has this exact same structure without the OH hanging off. And so that's why it was kind of predicted to be an MR receptor antagonist. So we did some work quite some time ago at Children's looking at this potential activity. We used the MDX mouse model, which was also mentioned earlier. This is a dystrophin deficient mouse model. And we took that mouse and we challenged it with aldosterone. Aldosterone is a hormone in the body that increases blood pressure, increases fibrosis in the heart, increases salt levels. And so it has negative effects on the heart. And so we took the MDX mice and we treated them with aldosterone. And then we also treated them with other medications. One was vamorolone, and then the other two were spironolactone, otherwise known as aldactone, and eplerenone, known as Inspra. These are two well-known mineralocorticoid receptor antagonists. Some of you may be on them yourself if you have issues with your heart. Some of you with children with DMD, they may be on one of these drugs already as part of their cardiac therapy. And so we compared vamorolone to see if it had activity similar to those two. Panel A is looking at heart function. WT means wild type, so those are just kind of normal mice. And then the MDX is this dystrophin deficient mouse. So we treated the MDX mice with aldosterone, and this red box is how that mouse reacts just to the aldosterone. The heart does not like it, the function decreases. The blue boxes are the mice that are treated with these other drugs, vamorolone V, eplerenone E, and spironolactone S. And you can see that all three of those drugs kind of block these negative effects of aldosterone. The middle panel is demonstrating cardiac fibrosis. The fibrosis is the red staining. The kind of orange is normal myocardium. And so you can see that it's just kind of this patchy fibrosis that's kind of throughout the muscle. We quantify that as kind of a percent of, the total normal heart muscle. And you can see here in panel C that the red box of the MDX mouse treated with aldosterone has increased fibrosis compared to the mice that were treated with vamorolone and these other two medications. So this was kind of a small animal model that supported the structural idea. We also did some cell work in this paper, and all of it supported that vamorolone has a potent mineralocorticoid receptor antagonism. So why do we feel that's important? Well, I think everyone should realize that cardiac disease is universal in DMD. Every child will get some element of cardiac disease. Some get obviously very severe disease. Some can have mild disease, but everyone will have some amount of it. Similar to skeletal muscle, the cardiac muscle cells lack dystrophin. They can tear This leads to cell death. This leads to an inflammatory response, and then you get this fibrosis. You saw that on the slide from Dr. Luckmuller of the skeletal muscle. Same thing can happen in the heart. And over time, people have realized that as the level of fibrosis in the heart increases, your cardiac function will at some point begin to decrease and you will start to have heart failure. As we have gotten much better at treating skeletal muscle disease, respiratory muscle disease, these new therapies that are coming, cardiac disease now is really becoming the leading cause of death in muscular dystrophy. The guys are living longer, they're becoming older, and that's allowing this kind of cardiac phenotype or this cardiac disease to show up. And so we really need to look at therapies that kind of modify this oncoming disease that they're experiencing. So just to go through kind of a big picture of cardiac fibrosis, this is a picture where in the middle here, we're seeing direct myocardial injury. I mean, this is basically what is happening because of the lack of dystrophin. The heart is doing its normal job, but in that normal job, the lack of that protein is causing these membrane tears, and you're having muscle cells that are dying. This is leading to different kind of pathways, inflammation, and aldosterone. Aldosterone was that medication that we gave MDX mice in our previous study. And so these types of reactions to the myocardial injury lead to the mineralocorticoid receptor activation right here in the red circle. You see it both in a little inbox here, and it's both showing how it kind of leads to increased fibrosis. So the nice thing, or what we are hoping, is that vamorolone blocks that pathway, and so we get less fibrosis down the road from this cardiac injury. This is just kind of a quick diagram of how we think of cardiac disease in DMD, starting with basically a normal heart over here in stage A. These arrows are pointing to the lateral wall of the left ventricle. The left ventricle is the big pumping chamber of the heart that sends blood out to the body. So here, everything looks normal. As you get into stage B, you can see that the muscle has some yellow kind of fibrosis in it. And it's just kind of within, but the muscle is still normal sized, and usually the function is normal, but you have this mild fibrosis. This then over time will progress to a dilated cardiomyopathy. The wall will get very thin, and it will basically be just fibrosis. All of your normal myocardium will be gone, and your heart function will be low, and you can develop symptoms of heart failure. So what our goal is to slow down this progression. And you can see, might be small, but there are little ages here under stage A, B, and C. And we want those ages to get much older. Under B, it says ages 8 to 14. We want to get that out into the 20s or the 30s with just mild disease. The techniques of MRI, cardiac MRI, have actually allowed us to visualize fibrosis within the heart. We use a technique called late gadolinium enhancement. Gadolinium is a compound that we give that lights up white on MRI. And so if you think of pictures you've seen in the news or online of a coronary angiogram, when there's like a blockage in the coronary artery, everything lights up and you can see all the blood vessels in the heart. So that's what happens here. But of interest to us is actually what happens when the contrast, the gadolinium, leaves the heart and all the normal blood now is flowing around. And what we see is these white areas that are inside of the normal myocardium, which is black here. And so this is the left ventricle, just like that cartoon we just saw. It's kind of drawn out the same way. But here you see this white line, but next to that arrow, that is actually some of this gadolinium contrast that has stayed in the heart muscle because that scarring is not a normal area and it doesn't have normal blood flow and the contrast doesn't flow away normally. And so you see this residual brightness in the myocardium, in the myocardial muscle. And so this gives us the ability to kind of measure the amount of fibrosis that's in the heart. And so this is the techniques that we will use in the grant. So our main interest is vamorolone, knowing that it has this mineralocorticoid receptor antagonism. Will it delay the onset of cardiac fibrosis and improve cardiac function over time? And so our first objective is to recruit the participants that we're going to study. We are going to focus on the initial clinical trials that were completed studying vamorolone. These kids obviously started when they were 4 to 7 years of age, and they have continued on that medication since those trials. Many of them now are 12 or older, and they have been treated with vamorolone for about 7 years. So we're going to target those participants. We're going to bring them in to perform a cardiac MRI assessment using that technique we just saw a picture of called late gadolinium enhancement. And that will give us a both qualitative and quantitative assessment of how much fibrosis is present in the heart. We will then use MRIs that we've collected from studying other kids with DMD who are not on vamorolone. We'll compare them as kind of historical controls. Those kids are treated with steroids. And so we'll have our control group of non-vamorolone treated and compare it to this cohort of children that have been on vamorolone due to the clinical trials. I also mentioned one of the side effects was delayed puberty. These kids they were too young when they started in the clinical trials, but now they're getting old enough in the early teenage years that we may be able to start to see some hormone levels in these kids that may be closer to normal than kids who are on steroids and may suffer from delayed puberty. So as kind of an exploratory marker, kind of a pilot study, we are going to collect blood on their visit. We're going to look for biomarkers related to cardiac disease, but then we're also going to look at hormone levels related to puberty onset because that has not really been looked at in this cohort. And so because we have them now getting older in that age range, it's a good opportunity to be able to collect that information. The study eligibility, as I mentioned, this is not going to be like an open study that really anyone can participate in. We are going to focus on the participants in these previous clinical trials listed here in the chart. They have been on vamorolone for a number of years now, over 7 years. We know their contact information. They have been followed by Revirgin. Excuse me. And only if, we have 169 here in our total recruitment pool, we're going to study about 40 of these kids. Only if we're kind of unable to get enough kids out of that would we kind of open it up to say people who have been on vamorolone for a few years, we'll include you in the study. But we want to try and have someone that has been on vamorolone for as long a time as possible to show those potential benefits from it. We have 2 locations, my hospital, Children's National Hospital in DC, and then also with Dr. Khan Hoare. He's the director of cardiac MRI there, a neuromuscular cardiologist at Nationwide Children's. We've worked together on a number of projects, and so that'll give some flexibility for recruitment of subjects. So why does this research matter now? As I said, very important, cardiac disease is universal in DMD. I also mentioned cardiac disease is the leading cause of death in DMD. So there's a lot of focus on skeletal muscle. It is the initial presenting symptoms in children. Loss of ambulation is a major life change for these kids. But we do also have to remember that the heart is going to be affected and we need to address it. And so if we can demonstrate a novel cardiac benefit of vamorolone, this certainly advances our understanding of therapeutics, and it will provide some more understanding of the process and timeline of cardiac fibrosis in the heart. And many patients and families, maybe some of you on this call, are going to be faced with the decision of whether to start vamorolone, switch off prednisone onto vamorolone, and certainly a better understanding of the potential benefit that vamorolone may have on the heart could help, better inform patients and families to make that decision. And then how are we going to use the support? Well, this is a observational trial in a sense. With the vamorolone intervention has happened because of the other VBP 15 clinical trials. So we're going to bring them in for a single visit and complete their MRI and their study markers. So the money will help kind of provide support, coordinators, developing the protocol, getting it all approved, and then providing travel support and research costs for the MRI and the blood tests. So in summary, there's a lot of evidence now that vamorolone is clearly differentiated from prednisone and deflazacort, and it has this property of a mineralocorticoid receptor antagonist. We know there's a benefit of that type of drug on DMD cardiomyopathy. It can reduce cardiac fibrosis, and so if we can show that vamorolone helps slow this disease and this progression, hopefully it will prolong life and improve quality of life for these kids. So in the end, just special thanks to all the families involved, the advocates, the donors, everyone supporting Defeat Duchenne Canada, and then all the hard work of our neuromuscular team here at Children's National, just a picture of everyone that comes together to help these great kids. With that, I'll end. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Dr. Spurney. We have a question for you. I have taken deflazacort for 30 years. I started taking it at age 16 after puberty, and I have been diagnosed with tachycardia and take tanolol. I am looking to change to vamorolone, and I understand my heart could potentially improve.
Well, one, I would think that there should probably be some other cardiac medications that already might have been started. Hopefully, one of those would be a lisinopril or an aldactone or an eplerenone. And certainly, if those are not being used, vamorolone would provide a similar type of a benefit there. But probably at this point, the more direct cardiac medication is probably the primary, drug that would be used. What we're hoping to show is that most cardiac medications aren't used now until 10 years of age or so. And if we can show this benefit on the heart and people begin to make the decision to use vamorolone as either an initial therapy or switching over at a younger age to vamorolone, we would have the confidence of saying, well, you know what, we've demonstrated that this is also having some benefit on the heart.